It's late. You're tired, staring at a pile of books, hoping something will stick. In the exam room, your mind goes blank. All those hours, but you can't remember. The real problem? Passive studying. So why does our brain forget things so easily, especially after we spend so much time studying? To understand this, let's think about how memory works. Your brain is not like a computer that saves a file perfectly forever. It is more like a muscle. When you use a muscle, it gets stronger. When you do not use it, it gets weaker. Memory works in a similar way. When you just read your notes, you are not really using your memory muscle. You are just looking at the information. Your brain sees the words and thinks, "Oh, I know this," because it is right there in front of you. But seeing something is very different from remembering it. The biggest problem with common study habits like rereading, highlighting, and summarizing is that they create something called the illusion of knowing. This is a tricky feeling where you think you understand a topic very well, but you actually do not. Because the information is familiar, your brain mistakes that feeling of familiarity for real knowledge. You feel confident because you recognize the concepts in your textbook. But when the textbook is closed and you are in an exam, that feeling of familiarity is gone. You are left with the challenge of actually recalling the information from scratch, which is a much harder skill that you have not practiced. Think of it like this. Imagine you need to learn your way to a friend's new house. If you only ever use a GPS to get there, you will recognize the route when you see it. But if one day the GPS is broken, could you find the way on your own? Probably not. You never had to actively remember the turns and the street names. Studying by rereading is like always using a GPS. It feels easy at the time, but you are not building a mental map. To truly learn the route, you need to try to get there without the GPS, even if you make a few mistakes along the way. This is the key to effective learning. We need to move from passive review to active recall. We need to challenge our brains to pull information out, not just look at it. This effort is what tells your brain, "Hey, this information is important. You should build a strong connection to it so you can find it later." Forgetting is a natural part of how our brain works. It makes space for new, more important things. To stop forgetting the things we want to keep, we have to signal to our brain that this specific knowledge is worth holding on to, and we do that by actively using it. So, what is this powerful, active way of studying? It is a method called retrieval practice. That might sound like a complicated scientific term, but the idea is actually very simple. Retrieval practice means actively trying to remember information without looking at your notes or your book. It is the act of pulling information out of your memory. Every time you do this, you are strengthening the neural pathways in your brain that lead to that information. It is like walking down the same path in a forest over and over again. The more you walk it, the clearer and easier that path becomes to follow. There are many simple ways to do retrieval practice. One of the easiest is to just use flashcards. But instead of just flipping the card over quickly if you do not know the answer, you must really try to remember it first. Take a moment and force your brain to search for the information. Another great method is to simply close your book after reading a chapter and write down everything you can remember about it. Or you can try to explain the main ideas to a friend or even just to yourself out loud. The key is that you are not looking at the source material. You are practicing the skill of remembering. This process can feel difficult at first. It is much harder than just rereading your notes. You will probably make mistakes, and you might not be able to remember everything. But this difficulty is actually a good thing. Scientists call this desirable difficulty. When your brain has to work hard to find an answer, the learning is deeper and lasts longer. It is like lifting a heavy weight at the gym. The struggle is what makes your muscles grow stronger. The struggle to remember is what makes your memory stronger. So do not be afraid if it feels hard. That feeling means it is working. Think about it. What is a test? A test is a big session of retrieval practice. You have to recall information without any help. If the only time you practice this skill is during the actual exam, you are setting yourself up for a very stressful and difficult experience. By using retrieval practice as your main study method, you are practicing the exact skill you need for the test. You are training for the main event. When you get to the exam, your brain will be familiar with the process of recalling information, and it will feel much easier and less scary. Now that you know about the power of retrieval practice, let's add another trick to make it even more effective. This trick is called spaced repetition. Again, it sounds scientific, but the idea is very simple. Spaced repetition means reviewing information at increasing intervals of time. So, instead of studying a topic for 5 hours on one night, which is called cramming, You study it for shorter periods over several days or weeks. For example, you might study a new concept on day 1, then review it again on day 3, then again in a week, and then again in 2 weeks. This is much more powerful for long-term memory. Why does this work? It has to do with how our brains decide what is important to remember. When you see the same information multiple times in one long study session, your brain thinks, okay, I've seen this a lot right now, but I probably won't need it tomorrow. However, when you see the same information spaced out over time, your brain gets a different signal. It thinks, wow, I keep seeing this same information again and again, day after day. This must be really important. I should hold on to this for a long time. It is a signal to your brain to move that information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. This method also works because it involves a little bit of forgetting. When you wait a day or two before reviewing a topic, you will have forgotten some of it. This means you have to use retrieval practice to pull it back into your mind. As we learned, that effort is what strengthens the memory. If you review too soon, the information is still fresh in your mind and it is too easy to recall. The spacing and spaced repetition creates that desirable difficulty that makes learning stick. It feels a bit counterintuitive to let yourself forget, but it is a critical part of building strong, lasting memories. Combining spaced repetition with retrieval practice is the ultimate study combination. You can use flashcards, for example, and sort them into different piles based on how well you know them. The cards you get right can be reviewed in a few days. The cards you struggle with can be reviewed tomorrow. This way, you are spending more time on the information that is difficult for you and less time on the things you already know well. This makes your studying much more efficient. You are not just studying harder. You are studying with a smart, science-backed strategy. These ideas about retrieval practice and spaced repetition are not just good advice. They are based on over a century of scientific research in cognitive psychology. One of the most famous early studies was done by a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus in the 1880s. He studied his own memory by memorizing lists of nonsense syllables. He discovered something called the forgetting curve, which shows that we forget information very quickly if we do not try to retain it. But he also found that reviewing the information at spaced intervals dramatically reduced how much he forgot over time. His work was the foundation for spaced repetition. More recently, a very important study was published in the journal Science in 2008 by 2 researchers, Jeffrey Karpicki and Henry Roediger. They tested college students on scientific texts. One group of students studied by rereading the text 4 times. Another group studied by reading the text once and then practicing retrieval. They tried to recall as much as they could 3 times. A week later, both groups took a test. The students who used retrieval practice remembered about 50% more information than the students who just reread the material. This study clearly showed that retrieval practice is far superior to passive rereading for long-term learning. Another study by Nate Cornell and Robert Bjork in 2008 looked at learning with flashcards. They compared students who studied a stack of flashcards all at once. This is called massed practice, or cramming, with students who studied the same cards in smaller stacks with breaks in between, which is spaced practice. The students who used spacing did much better on the final test. The research consistently shows that spacing out your study sessions leads to more durable and accessible memories. The evidence is overwhelming. Cramming is one of the least effective ways to learn and remember information for any significant period. These studies, and many others like them, give us a clear picture of how learning actually happens in the brain. The methods that feel easy, like rereading and highlighting, are often the least effective. The methods that feel a bit more difficult, like trying to recall information from memory and spacing out your practice, are the ones that create real, lasting knowledge. This is great news for students because it means you can stop wasting time on study habits that do not work and start using strategies that are proven to get results. Science is giving you a roadmap to becoming a better learner. So how can you put these powerful methods into practice starting today? It's easier than you think. Let's create a simple, step-by-step study plan. First, after you attend a lecture or read a chapter in your textbook, put your notes and book away. Take out a blank piece of paper. For the next 10 minutes, write down everything you can remember. This is your first retrieval practice session. Don't worry about making it perfect or remembering everything. The goal is to just try. After you are done, open your book and check what you wrote. See what you got right, what you missed, and what you got wrong. This will show you what you truly know. Second, create your study tools for retrieval practice. Flashcards are a classic for a reason. On one side of a card, write a question or a key term. On the other side, write the answer or definition. You can also make digital flashcards with apps like Anki or Quizlet, which have spaced repetition algorithms built right in. Another great tool is to create your own practice tests. Go through your notes and turn the main ideas into questions. Then, a day or two later, try to answer those questions without looking at your notes. This is a fantastic way to prepare for the real exam. Third, schedule your spaced repetition. Don't just study for your biology class on Sunday night. Instead, plan to review your biology material for 30 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Use your flashcards or your self-made practice tests during these short sessions. A good schedule could be: Day 1, learn the material. Day 2, review. Day 4, review again. Day 7, review again. As you get better, you can make the spaces between reviews even longer. This consistent, spaced-out practice will build the information deep into your long-term memory, making it much easier to recall on test day. Finally, make it a group activity. Find a study partner or a small group. You can quiz each other on the material. Explaining a concept to someone else is one of the most powerful forms of retrieval practice. If you can teach it, you truly know it. This also makes studying more fun and helps you stay motivated. Remember, the key is to be active, not passive. Stop just reading and highlighting. Start asking questions, testing yourself, and explaining the ideas. This active approach will transform your study habits and your grades. It can feel a little scary to change the way you have always studied. The old ways of highlighting and rereading might feel comfortable and safe, even if they do not work very well. Trying new methods like retrieval practice and spaced repetition might feel hard at first. You might not be able to recall everything immediately, and that can feel discouraging. But it is so important to remember that this feeling of difficulty is not a sign of failure. It is the sign that you are building stronger memories. It is the feeling of successful learning. You are training your brain to be stronger and faster. Think of yourself as a scientist running an experiment on your own learning. Try these new strategies for just one of your classes. After a lecture, try writing down what you remember. Create a small set of flashcards for the most important concepts and review them every other day. See how you feel when the next quiz or test comes around. You might be surprised at how much more you can remember and how much more confident you feel. You do not have to change everything all at once. Start small, see the results for yourself, and build from there. The best part about these techniques is that they do not just help you pass a test. They help you truly learn and remember information for the long term. The things you learn in college can be useful for your future job and for your entire life. By using retrieval practice and spaced repetition, you are not just memorizing facts for an exam, you are building a solid foundation of knowledge that will stay with you. You are learning how to learn, which is one of the most valuable skills you can ever have. This will help you in all your future classes and in anything new you want to learn. So, the next time you sit down to study, put away the highlighter. Close the textbook. Challenge yourself to actively recall what you know. Space out your study sessions. Embrace the struggle, because that is where the real learning happens. You have an amazing brain with an incredible capacity to learn and remember. You just need to use the right techniques to unlock its full potential. You can study smarter, not just harder. You can walk into your next exam with confidence, ready to show everything you have learned. You can do this.